Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming today, joining us for the annual Perceptions reading. I'd like to begin by congratulating and thanking this year's staff, who are all back here. Managing editor, Mike McGovern. Fiction, nonfiction editor, Jess Rockman. Poetry editor, Dan Kilkelly. Submissions editor, Nicole Howe. Copy editor, Benjamin Fick. Art editor, Jess Bruss. Design editor, Amber Casperson. And the cover art is by Stephanie Wisdom. I'd also like to thank Leanne Teig, the administrative assistant in the SMSU English department, and Neil Smith, our chair, for all their support. Congratulations also to all those student writers and artists published in this year's journal. Mike McGovern will be our MC today, and we'd like to invite you all to join us afterwards for cake, which has the edible cover art, and also to pick up your copy of the Perceptions. So thanks again for coming, and here's Mike McGovern.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to take a quick moment before we start here to pass the torch. Nicole Howe, who was our submissions editor this year, is kindly taking up the torch as managing editor for next year. So let's give her a little round of applause. I'm sure she'll do great. All right, so I'll just be reading one piece today, and then we'll get into the rest of everyone else's stuff here. And this is a piece called Pink. "Hurry up, man," Alex says from the other end of the short alley. He glances one way, then the other, his long curly hair sticking out of his hoodie into the light from the parking lot, effectively making him the most obvious lookout in history. I don't like to admit it, but he's right. We've already been back here for more than an hour, and there'd be no talking our way out of this if we're caught. "Come hold this end up," I whisper down the alley. "This goddamn stencil keeps slipping." The dim alley between the donut shop and the police station reeks of old grease and aerosol paint. Alex runs the few steps down the alley and snatches up the flapping corner holding against the side of the cop shop. "Here?" he asks. "No, man, higher, higher." "Ah, there." I shoot a steady spray of hot pink out at the wall, and the piece is almost done. "Go check the parking lot." Alex walks back to the end of the alley and sticks his head out into the light to check the side lot. I swear he couldn't be more obvious if he used a damn bullhorn. "Hey, what are the badge numbers again?" I ask, as I attach a small straw and a fresh can of black spray paint. "Gray is 512, Stark is 217, I think. Hurry up!" Alex seems positively giddy, staring down the road toward our town's one street light. I spray the numbers on, and I can hear him chanting under his breath, "Go, man, go, 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 go!" "There we are," I say, and carefully pull down the stencil from the top, being careful not to smudge any of the lines. "Done." Alex sprints down the alley to have a look as I pack away the last of the cans. "Oh, this is fucking excellent," he whispers before he lets out a bark of a laugh. I shove the large paper stencil into the donut shop's dumpster. Alex is so busy laughing he never notices the cruiser pull up. He doesn't notice the two local cops, not Gray and Stark, but a couple of officers tired from a long shift walking past the alley. "The fuck is this?" one of them asks, pointing at the wall. They walk slowly down the alley to look. The painting is huge, two hot pink pigs in police uniforms, the paint for their badges still drying, fucking on a pile of donuts. The pig with Gray's badge number 512 appears balls deep in the other pig, a look of porcine ecstasy on its face. Stark's pig is lying sprawled, tongue lolling out like it's panting. The two cops are silent, struck dumb for a moment before they burst into fits of hysterical laughter. "One of you two do this?" the other cop asks, wiping tear from his face. "Holy shit, this is excellent. Is that Stark?" "Oh, it has to be, man," the first cop says. "Look at his mustache," pointing at the 70s-style handlebar stash on one of the pigs, so common among pornographic plumbers and small-town sheriffs. "Oh, man, I can't wait for Stark to get off shift. He's gonna flip the fuck out." Alex and I start trying to slowly shift our way down the alley. "He's gonna kill you two," the first cop says, and reaches behind him, and for a second I'm sure we're about to get cuffed. But instead he pulls out his phone and starts snapping pictures of the wall. Alex breaks first, sprinting sprinting down out of the alley, and I'm right on his heels. We're running like madmen down the street, leaving the bag full of spray cans with the two laughing police officers. "Yeah, you better run!" The cop shouts down the street at us and keeps laughing. Thank you. And our next reader is going to be Rachel Hoheisel. I probably just horribly mispronounced that. I'm sure she'll correct me.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hoheisel, and my piece is called Strong Dislike. You stand there with your smug smile and lazy, unresponsive eyes that corrupt my soul. Your teeth stained yellow from years of black coffee and lack of oral hygiene. When I see your face, I run away in terror. Your voice is like an unbearable low-pitched murmur that never ends. I cannot control this burning desire to reconstruct your ghastly features with a chisel and perhaps a sledgehammer in order to protect the children from such a sight as yourself. Why are you still here? I can only say that bro tanks are not your thing. To wish you dead would be a waste, but to wish you eternity in flames seems a bit harsh. Like a pig, you obtain no true purpose except to be slaughtered. Such sadistic similes erupt when I speak of you. Your smile, like that of a clown, gives me the creeps. I can only imagine the strong and putrid scent of your cologne as it molests the nostrils of those around you and reaches deep into their lungs, suffocating them until they reach a distance of 5.2 kilometers in which they can breathe again. Like a pathetic dwarf, you fail to seduce women. Just stop trying. Strong dislike is how I feel towards you, for hate is for my enemies, and you are not my enemy. I just don't like you. Inspired and dedicated to Nicolas Cage.
All right, our next reader, and one of actually two recipients of our Poetry Award for the Don't Starve for Your Art contest, Danny Crowell. Come get your card.
Sure. Thank you. Yay, food. All right. So my first one here is called Hate Text. It was inspired by a Carol Muskie-Dukes poem called Hate Mail. It was an assignment by Mrs. Zarzana, Professor Zarzana, sorry, and a little graphic, but has dark humor. But anyway, so hate text. You're a slut, a dirty slut. Think people want you? Even your mom didn't want you. She wanted a little girl, not those spread legs that you allow any man to violate. You think those men will fill that hole your father left? No. They're going to leave that baby all alone again. You brought this on yourself. Wearing clothes that say yes when mouths say no, you're the reason women don't get to answer. And men feel like victims because your body doesn't give them an option. I hate you. Oops, I didn't mean any of that, girl. Autocorrect is a bitch, a filthy bitch. Okay. All right, and my next one is called Only Falling Snow. Ice bullets hit the window of the old woman's home. Snow drifts across her yard as her dark eyes glare. She wrings her hands, yanks off the wedding ring, throws it to the floor like he did her heart. An indent on her hand reveals the lost love. She closes her eyes. Old Barcelona dances across her mind. Hot rays of light, cool tile floors. She breathes in the salty sea air. Her mouth waters for spicy paella. Her skin yearns for the warm touch of that distant sun, but this life holds only falling snow. Thank you.
All right, our next presenter is actually our fiction editor for this year. Ladies and gentlemen, give a hand to Jess Rockman.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? Okay, awesome. I'm going to be reading a short story called The Right Light. Tom peeled his gloves away and tossed them in the general direction of the trash. He knew by feel where everything was: desk, paper, garbage can. His assistants would wrap up. As he left the dark room, he squinted at the bright office lights, rolling his shirt sleeves up to his elbows. He much preferred the cool, chemical-scented cocoon of the dark room. "Visitor," Amelia said blandly from the desk, not looking up from her anthropology homework. Her legs were crossed and she wore a fuzzy beige sweater. A tiny part of Tom wanted to spill a little toner on it, just enough to stain the fabric. Who? Tom always remembered his appointments, and he needed the time to bathe the darkroom in eerie amber light to do the second round for the Adler family, who specifically wanted all prints in both color and black and white. "I don't know, Laura something," Amelia said, marking her book with pink highlighter. "She said you were supposed to meet her last weekend." Tom hated surprises. "Did she make an appointment? What'd you say?" Amelia shrugged, already back into her classwork. "Get the chemicals ready in room 2, he said, running a hand through his hair. He knew she'd mess it up. Wedding agent, developer, stop bath fixer, it was so easy, but he wanted her out of his chair. "I'll bring her in." He ducked out into the hallway where 3 folding chairs leaning against the wall functioned as a waiting room. Laura sat in the chair closest to the door, legs crossed at the ankle. She craned her neck to look up at Tom. "Hello." She stood adjusting the strap of her purse over her shoulder. "Are you ready for me? I'm Laura, by the way." She moved into the office too quickly for Tom to get a good photographer's look at her face, but she was average build and average height, a few lines around her mouth and eyes. Her dishwater blonde hair was frazzled at the tips, and she wore a wedding band. A pair of dark sunglasses rested on top of her head. "Did we have an appointment?" Tom automatically moved out of her way so she could enter the office. "We did on Sunday," she said, stopping in front of the desk. There was nowhere else for her to go. The studio was a work in progress, though the term was used loosely. The studio was an old clinic office in a half-empty building with a small lobby and 3 dark rooms, each roughly the size of a twin mattress. Unopened cans of blue paint collected dust in the corner. The only thing in the room was a battered desk in front of a giant wall of photographs. But it was Tom's studio, Tom's work in progress, and he took great pride in it. "You skipped out on me on Sunday." "We didn't technically have an appointment," Tom said. "Chase referred you. I don't normally do non-client referrals." Chase was his best friend since high school, worked in plastic sales. Laura didn't look like the type of woman Chase usually took an interest in. Chase loved leggy brunettes, girls who didn't need to wear bras under their thin sundresses. Laura wasn't ugly, she wasn't pretty, she just was. "But I said I'd pay double, did you see that part?" "Yeah, I saw that part, Tom said and halted. There was nothing he could really say without revealing how much of an ass he was. He couldn't tell her that he didn't want to take some silly glamour shots or headshots for a portfolio that would look identical to the hundreds of other portfolios casting directors tossed aside. He couldn't tell her that he shot moments, not looks. He couldn't tell her that she was a waste of his time, the time he spent doing the only thing he truly loved to do. "Here, let's sit. Why did Chase refer you anyway?" Laura was already digging through her purse, confident that she had Tom in her clutches. "What do you think? Her name is Mary, or at least that's what the magazine says." She flipped over the cover of a battered, faded magazine to reveal the first page. Tom leaned over to look. "That's a pretty dated magazine. You might want to find fresher references." Laura glanced up at Tom, eyebrow raised. "That's not really the point." She fanned her magazine out on her lap, and Tom saw it wasn't a back issue of Vogue or Marie Claire. It was a porno magazine, one with a tiny, black-haired model lying on a set of rose-pink satin sheets, legs spread to the reader. Tom cleared his throat and leaned back in his chair. "I'm not sure what Chase told you, but I'm not a pornographer. I don't specialize in that." His eyes drifted back to the magazine, to the model with her sultry glare, and then back at Laura. Laura smiled, tired, but with no embarrassment whatsoever. She crossed her legs. Her shoes were tan wedge sandals, not matronly, but getting there. "You're a photographer, right? I want you to take some pictures of me like this." She held up the magazine again, thumb resting on the ocean blue backdrop. Tom held her gaze. She had nice eyes, hazel, big and bright. "That's just not what I do. I can give you a referral, though." Laura exhaled deeply and crossed her arms over her blouse. "What's the matter? I'm asking you. I chose you. You take a few pictures, make me look like this girl, and I pay you double." She had a, excuse me. She had a silver watch on her wrist, delicate and feminine. An old gift from her husband, probably. Tom scrubbed a hand down his face. I get it, I'm just not your guy. Laura shook her head, eyes rolling a little. She was a woman who was used to having her time wasted. She dug into the pocket of her denim capris and pulled out a crinkled Post-it note. Chase gave me your number and said you'd make me look like $1,000,000. Tom sighed. He cracked the first 2 knuckles on his right hand, then stopped, clenching his fists together on his lap. And what does that mean to you? Laura looked down at her feet. Tom followed her gaze to her tan shoes, her chipped burgundy toenail polish, the slight calluses forming beneath her toes. She looked up and gave a little shrug. Does it matter? He tried to picture Laura like the girls in the magazine, spread out and gleaming, breasts pushed in the air. Is this what you really want? Laura smiled, gentle and triumphant. Yes, this is what I want. So you'll do it? Tom opened his mouth to speak, to let her down easy, when the phone rang at his desk, startling them both. Let me take this, he said, avoiding Laura's eyes, and picked up the phone. Tom Isaacs. We still can't believe how well he's turned out, Mr. Isaacs. My mother practically cried when she got the prints in the mail. She said she'd never seen Rachel look so alive, Ava Adler gushed, voice heavy with emotion. She must have gotten the few digital pictures Tom took and sent to her email after the event. Tom grinned into the phone, rubbing the back of his neck. Laura shot him a glance, eyebrow raised, and he looked across the room. I'm glad to hear it, Mrs. Adler. It was a beautiful ceremony, and I was honored to capture it. We can't thank you enough. We've already found a frame for the one of Rachel receiving her beautiful necklace from her Aunt Kate. The way her face is lit up, the tears in her eyes, we'll treasure that photograph forever. Tom turned in his chair and glanced up at the space above his desk where he displayed his best photographs. The very one Mrs. Adler spoke about was dead center, framed by hundreds of others. Small and on LCD paper rather than a fresh color print, but still lovely. Rachel Adler, age 13, in a poppy-colored sateen party dress, surrounded by a soft glow of light. Her mouth was turned into a serene smile as she draped the delicate chain of a necklace on her hand, admiring the pendant. Her hair fell in a soft wave over her shoulder, and everyone looked on in pride, in admiration. They looked at the girl in a way all little girls want to be looked at. He glanced at Laura again, but she was looking out the window. For the first time during their meeting, he saw the light hit her right, her face light up the smooth slopes of her cheekbones. Her hair was paler from that angle and softer. Tom leaned back, his body abuzz. I'm glad you like it, Mrs. Adler. I hope you choose to call me back if you need anything else in the future. We certainly will, Mrs. Adler said with a sigh. I don't know how you do it. Tom hung up, a thick feeling of pride in his throat. He had a rush of energy that made him want to mix a batch of chemicals and start again on the Adler prints, make them better, stronger, make them into masterpieces, even though they were already pretty good. There was nothing like the feeling of capturing something in all its organic perfection. Instead, he looked back at Laura. Laura, the woman with crow's feet and a blasé smile, who didn't know shame. He imagined her laid back on a bed in rose-pink sheets, her hair splayed behind her in a platinum fan, her lips quirked into a knowing smile. Tom shook his head. That wouldn't do. Laura gave him an expectant nod. So, will you do it or not? He could do it. He could create something better for her, something that neither of them had ever seen before. Thank you.
All right, our next presenter is our second winner. We actually had a tie for the first time in several years for our poetry version of our Don't Starve for Your Art contest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jessica Watts.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to read a short little story and then end with my poem. Anniversary. A single drip of sweat passes between Jason Bennett's thick eyebrows as he sits on the cold piece of foam that is his mattress. The dim light bulb centered above the heavy metal door flickers. He stares at it in anticipation. The inside of his mouth is a desert, and he is unable to stop his left foot from bouncing up and down to some erratic beat. The tapping sound fills the 8x10 room he has called home for the past 7 years. Jason barely flinches as they start pounding on the door, yelling, "Face the back wall, Bennett. Get the fuck against the wall." Rising slowly, he shuffles towards the empty wall at the foot of his bed. Stopping just before his slightly crooked nose touches the chipping paint, he leans his head forward and rests it against the yellow wall. He closes his moss green eyes, the same eyes he had used to get the girls to trust him. It was his eyes that had got him caught. They were too distinct against his tan skin. He took in a shallow breath and heard the food port open. The scrape of the cheap plastic tray against the metal flap caused his mouth to water. The years and routine had transformed him into one of Pavlov's dogs. "Eat up, Bennett. It'll be your last meal for a while," states the CO, drawing a chuckle from the rest of the officers as they walk away. Jason turns and walks to the open food port, illuminated by the much brighter light from the hall. The small opening is about halfway up the door, only 4 inches tall and 12 inches wide, but immediately the room seems to get bigger. The crisp air from the hallway begins to fill his cell, and he feels human for the first time today. Sitting on the floor with his back against the metal frame that holds the foam mattress, he uses the open door of the food port as a makeshift table. The little door isn't large enough to hold the tray on its own when he turns it toward him, so Jason keeps his left hand on the red plastic of the tray. As he picks up the flimsy spork, he takes in the food laid before him. A single gray chicken breast, 1 scoop of instant mashed potatoes with a plastic packet of gravy stuck in the middle, soggy peaches that smelled like feet, and a pudding cup. Leaning his head back onto the mattress behind him, Jason closes his eyes, breathing slowly, psychs himself up for the meal he's about to eat. 35 minutes later, he's staring down at his almost empty tray. The empty gravy packet sits in the left-hand corner by his thumb, and the pudding cup sits in the middle with the lid torn halfway off. The top half of the pudding is white fuzz, and he isn't entirely sure if the bottom half isn't as well. The guys down in the kitchen must have been saving it for him for years, waiting for Jason's special day to give it to him. Looking out of the food port into the hall, he notices Jacobson giving him a toothless grin through his own food window. Jacobson's bald head was lined with Aryan Brotherhood tattoos, and his wrinkled face held dark blue eyes that seemed to always be watching Jason, even when the door was shut. "Better eat that, Bennett. You don't want him to say you were a pussy, you know." Jason's cold stare causes the old man to give up his leering and look away. Using the spork, Jason gently scrapes off the mold, revealing a small portion of chocolate pudding at the bottom. Jason uses the edge of the tray to remove the mold and then fills the spork with the pudding and puts it into his mouth. The sour taste is off-putting, but he swallows it anyway. Scooping up more onto the spork, his light is blocked from the outside. The CO from earlier is back, but without his pack of lapdogs this time. He bends down to look into the cell and somberly asks, "Ready, Bennett? Chow time is over." Jason examines the older guard's watery brown eyes. "Let me finish this quick, then you can take it." The CO takes the tray and closes the food port, shutting Jason into the dim cell once again. He walks over to the wall, and using the spork still clutched in his hand, he begins to carve in the 8th tally mark. And then this will be my poem. It is inspired by a David Hernandez poem called So the Pilot Says Over the Intercom. And mine's called So the Anchorman Says Over the Breaking News. Don't be alarmed if you hear gunshots. These are from the police and not the college-bound teen. From a single trigger squeezed multiple times and sparking an uprising. Look out your window to the left and right. That riot was meant to fill as many lawmen with lead until they had nothing to show but blackened holes. When the dust settles and your front doors become unlocked, the microscopic lenses double. Behind the crowds, the moon will hide behind the fog as a child hides behind its mother's skirts. Turn off the television, and the corners of our streets look dystopic. The lines of detainees and silhouettes of silent bodies. The yellow tape fences torn from the hands of protesters into war banners. All these street corners are going to remind the ruin we've made with our own minds. Ask Michael Brown, question George Zimmerman. If these streets were paved equally, we could skip over the cracks and hold our neighbors' hands, leading them over the flames. as many steps as it takes to stop the violence. So once again, the sidewalk can be scrubbed free from blood until someone else walks into the fire alone, feet tapping to the beat of a song and a free hand reaching for a cell phone.
Our next reader is our Don't Starve for Your Art contest winner for fiction, Gabrielle Kors.
Afternoon, everyone. The piece that I'm about to read is put in second-person perspective, so just go with me on it. I know a lot of people like to fight second person when they hear it, but it's kind of an interesting one, I thought, so here we go. What waits at home? There you are, 45,000 feet in the air, trapped, forced to carry baggage too light to take up space in a too heavy carry-on. The plane is full of returning members of the military, each unique in what they bring home with them. Those who are not returning from the war are on leave with their families. The children scream from the pressure building in their ears. Every time the high octave range is met, a shiver runs down your spine, and you impulsively crack your neck. The cabin is filled with the smell of microwaved meals and perspiration. It's almost overwhelming. You stare out the small port window, transfixed on the cumulus clouds. Their forms swirl in the sunlight, and you can't help but wonder, what's next? The plane rattles. You grab the armrest to brace yourself. Jazz, your friend, your battle buddy, laughs. Her smile reaches her eyes. What do you have to be afraid of? Just then, the flight attendant bumps your elbow with the cart. Pain shoots down your forearm. Shit, you hiss. The mother across the aisle with the 2-year-old snaps to attention. Her eyes judgmental, her lips set in a hard line. You shrug. I'm sorry, dear. Would you like anything to drink? Her teeth are uber, framed by a shade of pink lipstick too bright for her olive skin tone. Jazz leans past you. I'll have a Jack and Coke. You shift your attention from the lipstick to the silver name tag on her left breast. Nancy, it says in bold black lettering. You smile up at Nancy while rubbing your elbow. I'll have a gin and tonic. Then, suddenly, she is a worker bee. The plastic cups in front of you, its bubbling, emits small bursts of carbonation, like tiny grains of sand in a reverse hourglass. Rise, pop, rise, pop, rise. The command and control tower is dim. The main room is built of windows looking out at the flight line. The room is gray. Even the light that passes through the tinted windows is diffused into darkness. The only brightness in the room radiates out from the computer screens scattered across the vacant desks. You are standing at the window, your hair slicked back into a perfect bun at the base of your head. Your green flight suit has been pressed clean of wrinkles. The fact that you wear this uniform is a small form of rebellion against being put in a ground position. The others in the office are jealous of your suit's status. They are stuck wearing their airman battle uniform, which is just as gray as the room they work in. The C-17 lands on the flight deck. You hear the pilot radio into the tower. His voice echoes out through the hollowed room. Reach 581 is on the ground. Through your binoculars, you watch as the plane taxis to the hot cargo pad. A maneuver you only assume is due to the sensitivity of the cargo. The plane, though, is not carrying bombs or ammunitions, but a different type of explosive. 2 bodies have joined you at the window with their own binoculars. You look to your left. A general and a colonel have joined you at the perch. You nod and go back to looking out at the plane. You have wonderful binocular form, the general says. He's a foot taller than you, and his silver hair is groomed high and tight. Thank you, you say, smiling inside. Rise, pop, rise, pop, rise. You can barely manage the words out of your mouth. To you, they are wrong, they are shameful, you shouldn't feel them. I don't want to be here. Jazz looks at you. Her eyebrows almost touch her dark hairline. The lines crinkle her forehead, and they go smooth. I know what you mean. The whole time, all I could think about was going home. But now that I'm here, it's weird. You study her as she relives all the tragic pain she's felt for the last few months. When you left, you cried. You held each other. Your tears were from the loss of the contact with your husband. Her tears were at the loss of her husband forever. On the day of your deployment, before you boarded the plane, you kissed your husband goodbye, wept. Her husband had dropped her off at the curb, kept his distance, kept their daughter from her, told her he wanted a divorce. The bubbles rise and pop, and you remember all the moments over the last month that you had picked her up from the bathroom floor, how you had wiped the vomit from her mouth and held her as she wept into your embrace. You feel shame for not wanting to go back to a husband and family that wants you. The gin is sweet and piney against your tongue, and you take another sip. You know what I mean. We were good at that. Back there. Now? Home? I don't know so much. Jazz takes a drink and swallows hard. She looks back out the window. Right? She whispers. The first time you had left home, you cried at the airport. You cried on the bus. You cried while you were forced to shower in a bay of strangers. You cried that first night of basic training. The first morning you woke up, you swore you'd never cry again. You'd bury it deep. You'd keep strong. You needed to be strong. You would not waste your time thinking about the things that you had missed or were missing. That first trip back home, you were changed, grown up, able to understand what it meant to be you and to be strong. Your high school boyfriend saw this as unwanted change. He hated change. He hated what the military had done to you, made you strong. You'd fight for hours on end, only for him to wrap up with, I know you're there, deep down, wanting to come back. Then he'd point at your chest and smile. Inside, you would scream. Your soul would writhe and shake. You would claw and pull at your long blonde hair inside. Outside, you would smile. The smile never reaching your eyes. You would say, I know someday I'll be myself again. A lie you told yourself, told him, until you couldn't lie anymore. You stare at your drink again. Rise, pop, rise, pop, rise. What you know for sure is the future is not like the past, and the past will never be again. You are lost, suspended much like the airplane, defying all logic, but here you are, both existing. The sound of the rain thrums inside the interior of the black BMW. The wipers rhythmically flash across the glass. You squint your eyes up at the stoplight and crick your head to the side, trying to get a better view. Jazz is sitting in the passenger seat. Her hands are folded in her lap as she stares out the window. You don't know what to say to her. Everything you want to say to her will hurt her more. The rain seems to let up for a moment as the light turns green. You push in the clutch and jolt forward, eager to reach the Autobahn. The Spice Girls come onto the radio. You smile. Jazz smiles. The Germans have a knack for being a decade behind in music. So you crank Wanna Be loud and sing. Both of you smile at each other. It is the best distraction you can give her. When the plane lands, you're shifted forward in your seat, and the seatbelt tightens against your slim hip bones. You expect your stomach to jump or your heart to flutter. You are emotionless, your excitement buried underneath the complacency of yet another return from a deployment. You switch your phone off airplane mode. It is the first time in over half a year that you were able to do so. The screen illuminates with messages that are months old. You ignore them all and scroll through your contacts for your husband's number. His voice is high and full of excitement. Hello, he says. You try to mirror his excitement. I've landed, you say. Your voice is unnatural, a telltale sign of faked excitement. Great, he says. I'm down in baggage claim. See you soon, you say. The phone goes silent, and you place it back in your pocket. You look over at Jazz. She is excited. For her, this is the first time in 6 months that she gets to hold her little girl and say how much she loves her. It's her first deployment. her first time away from her family. It's a good thing Gary isn't here today, you say. She laughs and nods. I mean it. I don't know what I'd do if he was here. The laughter leaves her face, and she manages to giggle light. Jazz, if I ever had the chance, I would tell him how much pain he has caused you these past months. You deserve better. I love him, she says. Your heart sinks. She loves him. You loved someone once, thought they loved you too. But people who truly love each other don't do what Gary did before she left. I know you do. Your voice is calm and understanding, but you can't look at her. The bar is full of your friends and family. The music is blaring Nickelback from the corner, and laughter can be heard from people scattered across the tables. It is your going away party. You stand at the corner of the bar, your foot resting on the stool with your hip bone popped out to one side, taking it all in. You smile. The bartender moves up and down, grabbing glasses and replacing them with full ones. Your parents had purchased a keg of Coors Light for the party. Nothing brings people out of their homes on Saturday night quite like free beer in southern Minnesota. It's your first deployment, and your parents had wanted to make sure you had a proper send-off. Your mother is sitting at a high table at the other end of the bar with your aunt and boyfriend. You smile and wave to them, but your boyfriend stares at you with hollowed eyes and a blank face. Your mother pats him on the back reassuringly. A hand taps you on a shoulder, and it's Henry. His bald head reflects the orange Halloween lights that hang above the bar. You made it, you say, and throw your arms around him. Henry picks you up and squeezes you tight. Wouldn't miss it for the world, kid. Henry has always been there for you. Hold up. Let me see if I can get some more people so we can do shots. So you walk to the table in the corner. You brush your boyfriend's blonde hair behind his ear and kiss his temple. He retracts from your touch. Your mother and your aunt leave you alone and move to the bar. You sit on the stool next to him. What's wrong? Nothing, he says. His body is stiff and refuses to look at you. All the joy and excitement leaves you. You reach for his hand, but he pulls it away. What's wrong? You say again. He spins towards you on the stool. I don't think I can deal with putting you back together again. The table next to yours goes quiet. You lean in close to him and whisper, what do you mean, put me back together again? And you remember basic. You remember coming home to him, broken. At least what he thought was broken. But you were never broken. You were strong. The escalator is slow. The feeling of excitement in your stomach is growing. You rejoice deeply. Finally, an emotion that fits with the situation. You exit through the doors and head to the baggage claim 14, walking side by side with Jazz, both of you scanning the crowd. A small voice screams out above the crowd, Mommy! You watch as her 4-year-old daughter with brown hair the length of her back runs towards Jazz. Her tiny arms constrict around Jazz's legs. Your breath hitches in your chest. Everyone around stops to watch as the mother and the daughter reunite after months apart. You cry. You can't bury this down. You shake your head and ground yourself. Where is he? You scan the crowd looking for his curly brown hair and golden brown eyes. Your phone rings. Where are you? This time, his voice is not happy. I'm at baggage claim 14. I'm at 1. The phone goes silent. There you stand, the crown pushing against your still body, and you bob and weave looking for your husband. Any feeling of excitement lost. Then you see him walking slowly, a hitch in his step. In that moment, all is right in the world. He is here. You are here. You chastise yourself for not wanting to be with him, this wonderful man who loves you, who knows even though you've changed, you're still his. He whispers in your ear, I love you. The smell of spearmint and Old Spice floods your nose as you inhale deeply into his neck. You whisper, I love you too. And that's when it hits you. You wanted to be home just as much as Jazz. Those few moments your husband and you had before you left surface within. You shake your head and unwind from the haze of emotions coming to the surface. He wipes the tears from your cheeks and smiles. You turn from his touch and look for Jazz, but she's gone. In your moment, the bags had arrived. They circle around the carousel like damaged presents for greedy children to claim. The crowd around them stands shoulder to shoulder, rigid as they try to find their bags. Through the wall of previous passengers, you see your bag. It is yellow and black North Face duffel. Its handle is marked with pink Hello Kitty duct tape. In the identifier window is a card you placed with the phrase, "Don't be eyeing my bag." Your husband laughed when he saw you writing the card. "My bag," you say, and motion with your head to the carousel. He understands. He lets go of your waist and walks towards the baggage card rental. The carts clang as he jerks them hard, but they won't release for him. You sigh. He jerks the carts again, then throws his hands in the air. You shake your head. "They won't come. I've tried," he says. You hug him and reach around to his back pocket, pulling out his wallet. You grab the red debit card and swipe the machine to the right of the cards. "Pull," you say, nodding your head to the first cart. The cart comes loose with ease. You place the card back in his wallet and tuck it into his back pocket, tapping his left butt cheek twice. You smile up at him and kiss him on the mouth that is set in a frown. He sighs. "Come on, let's get my bags." The crowd has lessened now. All of your bags have made the trip, and you see them circling around. You motion for your husband to grab the small pink carry-on before it makes another trip around. He nods and plucks the bag up and places it on the cart. The North Face duffel comes around as he is turned. You reach for the bag, and you lift it with ease and drop it onto the cart. He looks up at you, then down at the bag, his eyebrows knit together and eyes squinting at you. "What?" you ask. His arms fold across his chest. You roll your eyes at him. He acts as if you had offended him. You have spent months, even years, carrying your own bags. To you, it's just another day. But to him, it's the day he gets to be a husband again.
Our next reader is going to be Melissa Peterson, so give her a round of applause as she comes up.
I'm going to read a poem and then a flash piece for you guys today. Changeling. The fairies exchanged me for a human girl. She was pink and squirmy, and she giggled when they lifted her up out of her bed. I was set in her place, alone. They all trooped away with their prize, without me. Off to an enchanted wood to dance the night away. This child was now creating fairy rings and sleeping on petals of pink, yellow, blue pastels. I was left to speak in her voice and wear her clothes and take all the sufferings meant for her. It was my job to take her place, so she could enter the land of forgetting and celebration. She was their beautiful human child, and I the changeling. Cans. Hey, Mom! Anne-Marie turned from the dishes in the sink towards the voice of her 7-year-old son. His hair was so blonde it was nearly white. Pink cheeks aglow with unbridled happiness that only a child seems to know. He bounded in from the living room off to the left. He was dressed in his father's old olive-colored t-shirt. It was long enough to reach his knees. We're collecting cans for the food shelf in Mrs. Laurie's class. What can I bring? He beamed up at her. If our class brings in the most, we get a pizza party in class. For a moment, Anne-Marie continued to work on a cup which had been fashioned out of an old jam jar. Finally, after rinsing it over twice, she walked silently over to the pantry. There were not many options to choose from. Finally, she selected an 8-ounce can of green beans and handed it over to her son. He looked disappointed. "Only one?" he asked glumly. "Taylor Stevens brought in 6 today." "Yes, well, we need the rest for ourselves. I'm sure your contribution will be appreciated nonetheless," she replied. She avoided looking at him. "All right," he said. "Thank you." He ran off towards the living room where his sisters played. His bare feet slapped against the chipped linoleum as he went. Anne-Marie turned back to the dishes and smiled softly at her son's excitement about participating in class activities. In a couple of weeks' time, that very same 8-ounce can of green beans would be right back in their pantry shelf. He would never know the difference.
Okay, and our final reader today is Dan Kilkenny. Or Kilkenny, sorry.
Hi everyone. I'm going to read a villanelle which was inspired by Professor Susan McLean's love of the form. It's called The Earth's Cellar Door. Still waters run deep, vibrant, and clear. What separates water from sky anymore? The world is always quiet here. Go find your moonlit face in the mirror. Sit down on that generous white sand shore. Still waters run deep, vibrant, and clear. You won't find such peace but this time of the year. An unplucked harp string wound tight to the core. The world is always quiet here. No ripples are born, though you're sitting so near. Not one wayward boat, no paddle, no oar. Still waters run deep, vibrant and clear. You could stand, walk out in water. You fear the hubris of joy. Riches make you poor. The world is always quiet here. It's a secret to everyone, far and near. The opposite end of the earth's cellar door. Still waters run deep, vibrant and clear. The world is always quiet here. Thank you.
All right, well, I just want to thank you all for coming to our reading, and please pick up a copy of the book as well as cake and punch in the back. Thank you.